නව ඩොමෙක්ස් පැල්ලම් සහ විසබීජ අවම කර දින 3ක් දක්වා ටොයිලට් එක ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ව තමයි. ඩොමෙක්ස්.
Resignation or not, as speculations are rife, Prime Minister is set to resign tomorrow. Bar Association meets the President. Says President accepts to take actions on BSL proposals. Endless queues. Tensions rise as people continue to demand domestic gas. Golf is Green protest marks a month in progress. More demonstrations. Trade unions declare a week of protest in response to the state of emergency. Defence Ministry clarifies measure taken to restore stability. Fuel rationing. Lanka Indian Oil Company to limit fuel issuance for three-wheelers, motorcycles, cars, vans and SUVs. All this and much more coming up on this Sunday, the 8th of May 2022.
Clear Ice Cool Menthol is horrible තොර ලස්සන කෙස් කලබක් ලබා දෙයි. Clear සමගින් දැන් zero dandruff.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. Joining you tonight on First at 9, AdaDerana 24. I'm Indiva Riyamuatta. Now the big question right now is whether Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa will resign from his post tomorrow or not. Political sources say that the Prime Minister and the government will resign tomorrow and will allow a national government to address the country's aggravating crisis. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka, which is active in their proposals for an interim government, presented it to the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. During the meeting, the President had told the Bar Association of Sri Lanka that action will be taken constitutionally on their proposals, and it will be taken favourably.
Chief prelates of the tri-sectors of Buddhist clergy once again reiterated their calls for the establishment of an interim administration with the cooperation of all political parties in order to resolve the present crisis in the country. In a statement once again, they expressed their sadness to witness the lack of political action and mediation through Parliament to solve the problems faced by the people today. The statement went on to say that the politicians might have to face serious consequences if appropriate steps are not taken immediately. While the Buddhist clergy highlighted the need for an interim governance, the country's main opposition, Samagi Jana Balawegaya, which continuously took an objecting stance towards joining an interim government, yesterday expressed their readiness to support a national unity government after considering proposals put forward by the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. Some of these Bar Association proposals put forward recently to restore the country's political and economic stability include the establishment of an interim government of national unity consisting 15 cabinet ministers, the immediate introduction of the 21st Amendment to the Constitution by repealing the provisions of the 20th Amendment and restoring the 90th Amendment, the re-establishment of the Constitutional Council, the independent commissions which existed under the 90th Amendment, while enhancing their financial independence, transparency, and accountability were also proposed by the Bar. Further, the preparation of a common minimum program by the Cabinet of National Unity, tabling it in Parliament for approval and implementation of the program by the Cabinet, which is their responsibility, was also proposed. According to the BSL, the common minimum program will focus on debt restructuring, negotiating an IMF program, and obtaining bridging finance from bilateral partners pending the IMF program and the immediate resolution of the shortages of essential goods and services. Prior to the meeting with the SJB, the independent group of the government met with the Bar Association this morning. Addressing media after the meeting, SLFP chairman, former President Maithripala Sirisena said the discussions with the BSL were a success.
ජනාධිපති තනතුර ඒ වගේම පාර්ලිමේන්තුව මැතිවරණ පැවැත්වීම මේ කියන කටයුතු වල ව්‍යවස්ථාමය වෙනසක් කිරීමට තමයි අපි සාකච්ඡා කරේ. ඒ සාකච්ඡාව ඉතාමත්ම සාර්ථකයි. කොයි විදිහටද ඉස්සරහට යන්නේ කියලා කටයුතු කිරීම තමයි බලාපොරොත්තුව.
සර්වපාස්ක රජයක් ගැන දැන් කතා කළාද?
ඔය අපි ඒක යෝජනා කරලා තියෙනවනේ.
Following the meetings with the independent group, the Bar Association met with the Samagi Jana Balawegaya.
මේ ඒකාධිපති විධායක ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමය වහා අහෝසි කරන්නට ඕන. ඒ අපි බොහොම පැහැදිලිව ප්‍රකාශ කර තිබෙනවා. නීතිඥ සංගමයට සත්කාරක පාර්ශ්වයක් හැටියට මෙයට මැදිහත් වෙලා ඒ කල යුතු ඉදිරි සාකච්ඡා විනිවිද භාවයෙන් යුක්තව ඉදිරියට කරගෙන යන්නට අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා.
ඒතර ඒ කියන්නේ ඉදිරියේදී සර්වපාක්ෂික ආණ්ඩුවකට යනවද?
නීතිඥ සංගමයේ ගියා ජනාධිපතිවරයා හමුවන්න ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ ප්‍රතිචාරය අපි දැනගන්නට ඕන.
සමස්ත විපක්ෂයම එකතු වෙලා යම් විදිහක ඇතිවෙන්න යන දේශපාලන හිඩස කොහොමද අපි පිරවීමේ කර්තව්‍යයට එකතු වෙන්නේ කියන එක පිළිබඳව ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රතිචාරයට අනුකූලව තමයි අපටත් කටයුතු කරගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ. ඊයේ විපක්ෂ නායකතුමාට ඉල්ලීමක් කර තියෙන එක ඇත්තටම ඊටාම කල් පැනලා කරන් තියෙන තීන්දුවක්. කඩිනම් පියවරක් හැටියට යම් සත්කාර පාර්ශ්වයක් එක්ක අපි රජයේ නියෝජිතයන් එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කිරීමට සූදානම්.
දැන් විශ්වාස භංගය එයිද?
විශ්වාස භංගයත් ආයුති මොකද විශ්වාස භංගය කල් දමන්න බෑනේ. රජයට දැන් බහුතරයක් තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියලා හොරගා බලන්න එපා.
Members of the SJB also met this afternoon to further discuss their meetings with the BSL.
සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයාට අගමැති ධූරය බාර ගන්න කියලා යෝජනාවක් ඇවිත් තියෙන කියලා වාතනවා.
එහෙම යෝජනාවක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනයේ යටතේ අද අගමැතිවරයා කියන්නේ පඹෙක්. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කිසිම බලතලයක් නැහැ. ඉතින් පඹෙක් වෙන්න සූදානම් නැහැ. ඒකයි නීතිඥ සංගමේ යෝජනා වල තියෙනවා විධායක ජනාධිපති ධූරය අවශ්‍ය කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට යම්කිසි බලයක් දෙන්න. ඒතකොට ඒ අදහසට ජනාධිපතිතුමා කැමති නම් අපි ඊළඟ පියවරට යන්න සූදානම්.
In the meantime, the Bar Association also met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. BSL presented their proposals to the President and they have said that a favourable response has been received from the President. The BSL has also presented their proposal to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa as well.
Now, in the early hours today, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa embarked on a visit to Anuradhapura for religious blessings, and during the visit, he was notably met with some protesting. During the visit, though the Premier was seen engaged in cordial conversation with some devotees, he met with some protesters exclaiming their displeasure in him and displaying placards against him and the government too.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa visited Anuradhapura this morning to pay homage to the sacred Jaya Shri Mahabodhi tree and receive blessings. Upon leaving the premises, an individual was seen protesting against the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister then arrived at the Ruwanvelli Mahasaya temple, and there he was seen engaged in cordial conversation with fellow devotees present at the stupa premises. The Prime Minister then engaged in religious observances at the Ruwanvelli Mahasaya. Some people were also seen opposing the Prime Minister when he was leaving the Ruwanvelli Mahasaya premises.
Sir, මේ රට ආරක්ෂා කරපු නායකයෙක්. ඒ නිසා සර් අපි ගෞරවයෙන් ඉන්නවා සර් අපට අවස්ථාවක් දීලා. සර් මේ වෙලාවේ රට බේර ගන්න ශක්තිය දෙන්න සර්. අප්පච්චි දැන් බැලේ යන්න.
Later, the Prime Minister proceeded to the Mirisavatia Stupa. Upon leaving the Mirisavatia Stupa premises in his vehicle, some individuals at the venue protested against the Premier.
Now, the National Trade Union Coordinating Centre announced today that they will stage a mass protest on the 17th of this month in front of Parliament to ensure that the government and the President heeds to the calls of the people during its parliamentary session. The Trade Union Coordinating Centre has meanwhile declared a week of protests from tomorrow, the 9th of May, demanding the government and the President to go home without delay. Other trade unions, while echoing the same calls for the President and the government to step down, insist that they will not be deterred by the emergency law and called on the President to revoke the declaration.
නැගිටින ජනතාව බියවත් ගන්න. වැඩ කරන පන්තියේ සංවිධාන බියවත් ගන්න කියලා හිතන්නම් ආණ්ඩුව මේ හදිසි නිර්ධානය අපි ආණ්ඩුවට කියනවා. ඔයගොල්ලෝ අප්‍රේල් 3 වෙනිදා දාපු ඇඳරි නීතියත් අපි කැඩුවා. ඇඳරි නීති ගණන් ගන්න නැති මේ රටේ වෘත්තීය සමිති බහුජන සංවිධාන සටන් කරන මිනිස්සු ඕගොල්ලන්ගේ මේ හදිසි නීති ගණන් ගන්නේ නැහැ. මේ ජනතාවගේ ඉල්ලීම් දිනා ගැනීම වෙනුවෙන් ගෙන යන සටන මර්ධනය කරන්න හිතාගන්නම් ආණ්ඩුව හදිසි නීති ගෙනාවේ වහාම හදිසි නීති අකුලවන්න. ඒ නිසා අපි ආණ්ඩුවටයි ගෝඨාභයටයි කියනවා දැන් කාලය අවසන් වෙමින් තියෙන්නේ 17 වෙනිදා රැස් වෙන පාර්ලිමේන්තුව රටේ ජනතාව ඉල්ලා හිටන විසඳුම ලබා දෙන්න සූදානම් වෙන්න. ඔබෙන් මේ විසඳුම ගන්න 17 වෙනිදා අපේ රටේ වෘත්තීය සමිති ව්‍යාපාරය පොදු මහ ජනතාවත් එක්ක පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ළඟට එනවා. ඒකට ලෑස්ති වෙන්න. ආපහු අපි යන්නේ විසඳුමක් අරගෙන.
මේ හදිසි නීතිය ගේන ගැසට්ටුවේ තියෙනවා මේ රටේ මිනිසුන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාව අවශ්‍යතා තහවුරු කරන්න තමයි ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා හදිසි නීතිය ගේන්නේ. අපි අහනවා රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ මේ රටේ මිනිසුන්ගේ දැන් අවශ්‍යතා සම්පූර්ණ වෙලාද තියෙන්නේ කියලා. පාරට නම් ඇවිල්ලා බලන්න බැරි වෙයි. පුළුවන් නම් ටීවී එකේ බලන්න මේ රටේ මිනිසුන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාව මොනවද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. නිසා අපි වෘත්තීය සමිති සම්බන්ධීකරණ මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ විදියට ලබන සතියම විරෝධතා සතියක් විදියට නම් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ විරෝධතා සතිය තුළ අපි මේ රටේ මිනිසුන්ව පාරට ගේනවා. මේ රටේ මිනිස්සු අරගල වලට කැඳවනවා. අපි අභියෝග කරනවා පුළුවන් නම් ඔයාගේ හදිසි නීතියෙන් ඒව නවත්තන්න කියලා.
මේ වෙනකොට ස්වදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ලේකම්වරයා ලියුමක් නිකුත් කරලා තියෙනවා. මේ අර්ථාලයේදී ආපු නැති රාජ්‍ය සේවකගේ විස්තර ගන්න. අපි ඒවට බය වෙන්න අපි කැමැත්තෙන්ම විස්තර දෙනවා. මොකද එතකොට තමයි ආණ්ඩුවට දැනගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්නේ කී දෙනෙක් මේ අරගලය තුල ඉන්නවද කියන කාරණාව. දැන් අපිට පැහැදිලිව පේන දේ තමයි අද අගමැතිය අස්සෙනවා නෑ ඉන්නවා නෑ අස්සෙනවා කිය දෙපැත්තට ප්‍රචාරණය කරමින් මේ ඉන්න තත්ත්වය. ආණ්ඩුව සූදානම් වෙනවා නම් පැහැදිලිව තවදුරටත් ඉන්න 17 වෙනිදාට පෙර ගෙදර යන්න කියලා තමයි අපිට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
The Ministry of Defence issued a statement last evening clarifying the decision of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in imposing a state of emergency from the 6th of May midnight. In a statement, the ministry said that the struggle that has been going on as a peaceful one changed and the democratic rights of the people violated in an attempt to disrupt the normal life of the people in the country. The statement also said that the state of emergency was imposed considering the status quo in accordance with the constitutional powers vested in the President.
Issuing a statement last evening, the Defence Ministry said that they respect the democratic right of the Sri Lankans to express their agitations and protest peacefully within the democratic framework. However, the ministry said that the peaceful struggle during the last few days changed and the democratic rights of the people were violated in an attempt to disrupt the normal life of the people in the country. The statement also said that there have been reports of protesters behaving in a provocating and threatening manner without regarding the prevailing law and order in the country and disrupting the work of the police and the security forces, and as a result, the majority of the law-abiding citizens of the country found it very difficult to maintain the essential services required to carry out their daily lives. The Defence Ministry then said that the state of emergency was declared considering the status quo in accordance with the constitutional powers vested in the President in terms of Article 2 of the Public Security Ordinance and as per the powers vested in the President of the country to maintain public peace, securing the lives of the people and ensuring social stability. The ministry informs all citizens to act responsibly with the utmost intelligence and patience during this difficult period to maintain law and order in the country and extend the support to the armed forces and the police.
The Golf Face Products mask marks 1 month. Details after this break.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Tensions were high in the areas of Navin in Maharagama today as people angered by shortages of domestic LP gas cylinders began protesting on the Navin road today, causing heavy traffic congestion along the high-level road. The protesters blocked the road and demanded authorities to provide them with domestic gas. Protests of a similar nature have been rife in many other areas of the country as well, with people continuously demanding for the commodity to be made available.
Among many of the commodities that are in short supply in Sri Lanka at the moment are domestic LP gas cylinders. This has been the case for over the past couple of months, and over time, people have become increasingly frustrated over the effort that needs to be exerted to procure a cylinder of domestic gas. Today, a group of people carried out a protest in front of the refueling station in the area of Navinna in Maharagama, demanding for domestic LP gas to be provided. The agitators prevented the flow of traffic from the area of Navinna to the high-level road, causing severe traffic congestion. Last evening, a group of people who had gone to purchase domestic LP gas cylinders had proceeded to block Champeta Street with their empty gas cylinders as they were unable to meet their needs. Meanwhile, last night, the people travelling using the Jetavana road in Colombo 1 had to find an alternative route to proceed to their destinations, as many people took to the streets with their empty gas cylinders and protested, demanding for gas to be provided. Meanwhile, Litru Gas Lanka Limited Terminal in Mutrajavela was seen issuing limited number of gas cylinders today, despite it being a holiday. In the meantime, due to the lack of gas, many people had tried to shift to kerosene instead, but were nonetheless disappointed on this front as well, as many areas had reported a shortage in kerosene as well. Today, residents of Grand Pass in Colombo had staged a protest in the area, demanding for kerosene to be provided after they were unable to acquire kerosene from a local filling station. However, the protest concluded about an hour later as a bowser with kerosene arrived to the area.
Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara denies social media reports of a possible fuel price hike. Taken to Twitter, the Energy Minister said that messages circulating on social media are completely false and that no price increases in fuel will be made by the two suppliers, the Lanka Indian Oil Company and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. The minister also said that legal action will be taken against those who have posted and shared fake and false news to mislead the public. Also speaking at a media briefing held on Monday last week, Kanchana Wijesekara said that there is no planned discussion to revise fuel prices for the next 2 weeks. Also, the Lanka Indian Oil Company said issuing of fuel for vehicles will be limited at Lanka Indian Oil Company filling stations from tomorrow as follows. Fuel for Rupees 2,000 will be issued to motorcycles, 3,000 rupees worth of fuel will be issued to three-wheelers, and 8,000 rupees worth of fuel will be issued to cars, vans, SUVs. Now, this does not apply to buses and lorries as well as commercial vehicles, according to Lanka Indian Oil Company. Commercial law experts say that an interim government has to implement unpopular economic reforms such as raising taxes and privatizing state-owned enterprises to get away from the crisis. These comments came during a webinar that was held today on the proposals of the Bar Association to restore political and economic stability in the country.
As Finance Minister has repeatedly said, we are going to have a terrible 2 years to go, and there's going to be huge amount of reforms that are going to hit everybody across the board, including taking away subsidies, maybe privatizing or reorganizing, restructuring the SOEs, which means petroleum, CEB, the banks. Then taxation will have to increase. So those are very, very unpopular and politically suicidal reforms that will have to be made at this juncture for us to get out of this problem. In colloquial terms, no political party wants to be the Billy Boy. They don't want to be the person who does this unpopular politically suicide reforms. And that is one of the reasons that none of these reforms have ever been made in this country, because they are looking from one election to the other. So the way out is spread it around. In this 1.5 years period, there will be, by this interim government, there will be economic reforms. Advised by the panel of experts, they will have to, and this is something that they cannot do, they have to raise the taxes, restructure the SOEs, bring back the money from the out of the Undial and those systems. There's the huge, at the moment, the biggest issue is the interest rate, which is going at 25%, which will basically kill the SME market, SME manufacturers and industry. But if this interim government where everybody is responsible to taking those decisions, then what happens is that nobody can be blamed thereafter on a political basis. You went and raised the taxes, therefore we are not voting for you. You went and privatized CEB, therefore we are not voting for you. You can't do that, because every single political party represented in parliament will be responsible for those reforms, however politically suicidal it is. So if it is political suicide, it is political suicide for everybody. At the same time, if it becomes successful, and that after 2 years or 1.5 years as suggested by the Bar Association, if we do get out of this mess, then in the same way, all political parties will share the benefits and the whatever the votes or the recognition that they get as being the people who solve the problem. Now, this cannot be done on a political basis, breaking into and what has been happening in parliament for the last 2 weeks. That is not how countries are run. That is not how legislatures are run. So if we can't get this a decision from the executive, if we can't get a decision from the legislature, then we need a solution like this, which is what I would like to call a pan-political interim government, so that every person participates in getting out of this problem. To resolving this problem, every person will get the blame for the unpopular reforms that you are doing, and every person will be given the accolade for solving this problem, so that the political aspect of governance in this country is taken away.
The Ministry of Finance said that the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank has stated that it is considering the granting of $100 million to Sri Lanka in principle. This was mentioned by the AIIB president during a virtual meeting between the senior management of AIIB and Finance Minister Ali Sabri yesterday. Sri Lanka's ambassador to China, Dr. Palitha Kohana, and Secretary to the Treasury, Mahinda Siddhavardana, along with the Finance Ministry officials, also participated in the meeting. Now, a discussion was held on the current areas of cooperation and also the managing of the present crisis situation in the country. At the outset, the AIIB president had reiterated their commitment to support Sri Lanka and stated that he was confident Sri Lanka will overcome the current infrastructure and other difficulties that are faced by the country. A discussion was held regarding immediate emergency support to Sri Lanka, and AIIB president stated that they were considering the granting of $100 million to Sri Lanka in principle, and that he would discuss it further with the board. Talks were also held regarding medium to long-term support to Sri Lanka, and Minister Ali Sabri had discussed the need for forex liquidity support for state banks of the island nation and had requested if such can be provided by AIIB. AIIB had assured that they will continue to work with Sri Lanka and support the government of Sri Lanka in overcoming its present crisis. The Sri Lanka Medical Association has made a request to all security personnel to not use tear gas as a deterrent on protesters, as it could cause severe health implications such as breathing difficulties, burns, and affect the eyesight of unarmed protesters. Vice President of the association, Dr. Suranta Pereira, further called for the removal of the state of emergency that has been invoked across the country, as it would only compound the problems of the country. In the meantime, the protest at the Golface Green went down in history today for becoming the first peaceful protest in recent times to have been carried out for 1 month continuously.
The protest at the Golface Green marked 1 month today since it commenced on the 9th of last month. The most notable feature of the 1-month-long protest is the fact that demonstrations continue to be peaceful in nature, despite the large number of people who continue to gather at the premises. Yesterday, many renowned Sri Lankan television artists, voice artists and directors joined the protest at the Golface Green. A group of protesters marched towards the Golface Green last evening to raise awareness about breast cancer and the urgency in providing the Maharagama Apeksha Hospital with the necessary medication. A differently abled war hero also joined the protest at the Golface Green in a wheelchair from Minuwangoda in Gampaha to support the struggle last night. Following this, a torch was lit by some of the protesters in front of the campsite of the differently abled war heroes, which is expected to be lit continuously throughout the time of the Golface Green protest. Today, protesters placed their signs for a petition to recover state funds stolen by politicians from the country. In the meantime, many other protests were worked off in the areas of Galle, Moratua and Beruwala in support of the Golface Green protest. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Medical Association requested the security police personnel today to not use tear gas to disperse protesters, as it could have other implications.
Now, the protest in front of temple trees calling the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to resign turns 2 weeks today. Many protesters gathered at the protest site today as well, calling for the Premier to resign from his position immediately during the day. Last night too, many civil society activists and other people converged at the protest site, holding placards and chanting slogans. The protesters agitated on the pavement located outside the Prime Minister's official residence. Meanwhile, today, a group of students from the Colombo University carried out a protest march and arrived at the protest site and then proceeded towards the main agitation site at the Golface Green. Taking you to sports news, the Sri Lanka cricket team left for Bangladesh this morning for a 2-match test series with the Bangladeshi team, and the first test between the two teams will be played on the 15th of May in Chittagong.
The Sri Lankan cricket team left the island to Bangladesh this morning to participate in the 2-match test series with the Bangladesh cricket team. The 18-member squad will be captained by Dimuth Karunaratne. Chris Silverwood, the former head coach of England cricket team, is the head coach of the Sri Lanka team. Skipper Karunaratne is set to arrive in Bangladesh from the UK since he is currently on a county cricket championship in London.
Bangladesh is a very strong team, and if you take them lightly, you're fooling yourself. You need to play your A game to beat the Bangladeshis, and we need to perform really well. I mean, we've got the skill and the talent, and I'm sure that we will do that. We've got a very good squad. It's just that we need to go out there and execute the plans.
The visitors will play their first test match with the Bangladeshi team on the 15th of May at the Zahur Ahmad Chowdhury Stadium in Chittagong. Prior to the first test match, a 2-day practice match will be worked off between the two teams in Chittagong.
With the very latest from across Sri Lanka, we'll return tomorrow at the same time. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.